All right, Coach D'Amata, American Top Team. This guy's been a friend of mine for a long time. We were doing the journey together, trying to be aspiring fighters before he went over exclusively into coaching. I just have to tell you, he is red hot. I mean, when I watch Holly Holm and I watch Silva this weekend, I can't help but notice, as soon as I see Coach D'Amata in the corner, I know they're going to have a game plan. I know that they're going to be prepared for this match. I know they're not going to look at Holly as a veteran of the division and a former champion and somebody that helped to pave the way for all the other women, which is exactly what Holly is and nothing less. They're going to know how to beat her. Now, whether you can go out there and do it, that's a whole other story. They're going to know how to beat her. And it was just one of these situations, right? I mean, you think about a snowball. Get this little flake that starts rolling downhill, and it just keeps on getting snored, and it turns into this thing, and eventually it plows over trees. Momentum in sport is real. So I'm watching this Silva gal, and by the way, she has what it takes to be a star. She is just likable. She is just playful and likable. She knows who to call out. I mean, she gave a shout out right to Julianna Peña the moment that match was done. You didn't see Holly Holm, by the way, regressing. That's not what you saw. I saw an article that was written. And I don't know that it was wholeheartedly wrong. It was just mean-spirited, and I did not like it. And the article spoke to the theme of, thank goodness Holly got beat, so that we can get some new blood in the women's main events. Holly Holm has been hogging half of the main events every time the women headline a card. Okay. That's not wholly inaccurate. But what I'm sharing with you isn't quite the changing of the guard that you think you're seeing. It's not quite the hang 'em up for Holly Holm that you think you're witnessing. What you're seeing is not a beaten Holly or a defeated Holly or a declining Holly. You're seeing a tired Holly. And we had to have this same conversation over here years ago with Gustafsson. Alexander Gustafsson decides he's going to retire. He doesn't want to do it anymore. And we got to remind him, Alex, the sport that you know is not the sport that anybody else on the roster knows. They were using Alex Gustafsson exclusively in main events. He was either fighting for championships or he was just headlining cards. Everything was 25 minutes. Everything was the full media build. Everything was him and the marquee. They went to Sweden, I believe, twice. I know at least once he took on Lionheart. That's off the top of my head. But I think they went to Sweden twice, where he's the marquee. Shoot, I know they went twice. They might have gone 3 times. I mean, I'm just sharing for you. It's a very exhausting role. And before you decide I'm going to retire, how about you just try the sport before you retire? How about you just try the sport the way everybody else has to do it? Which is for 15 minutes. And it was just a suggestion, but I bring that to you with Holly Holm. And I don't know why she can't. I understand why she's a main eventer. I understand why she's going to be a future Hall of Famer. I understand former world champion. And, you know, I would love it if Pierre or Adesanya came out and credited Holly Holm. I would love it if Izzy Adesanya or Alex Pierre came out and said, as kickboxers, as I was watching other kickboxers come over, and so few found success, but the ones that did find success found it all the way to the top of the mountain, right? We never had a mid-level kickboxer come over. They either fell on their face and were embarrassed, or they became the champion of the world. I think of 3 of them right now. You got Pierre, you got Adesanya, and then you got the original, which is Holly Holm. I would just love, if it's true, if they came out and said, we saw her and she inspired us. We saw the way that she would use the range, use the kicks, use the elbows, use the knees, use the punches, defend the takedowns, emphasis on cardio, believe in her grappling, protect herself on the ground, find a way to scramble back to the feet. I would love if they credited her with that. And I can only imagine that it's so. I remember when Holly was going out to fight Ronda Rousey, she was a 7-1 underdog, and they took the fight to Australia. Now, they sold 40,000 tickets, so I won't second guess them. But you took a gal from California, you took a gal from New Mexico, and you flew them to Australia to be a main event. I'll just share with you that that was interesting. And I personally remember being very dismissive of Holly. And when she was going to the fight, they were billing her as a 17-time world boxing and kickboxing champion. And that's what I begrudged. I begrudge that 17-time world. I come from the sport of wrestling. Anybody with a heartbeat that raises their hand can enter a competition that they will whittle down over 12 months until one person is left standing. That's a world champion. That's a true world champion. There will be a competitive architecture, and they will go through anybody, regardless of skill. If you raise your hand and you say, I want my shot at this, you got it. And I only share with you, when you get a promoter that's doing a main event, he goes online to blah-blah.com, and he orders a belt for $300, and he hasn't put world champion on it. I took issue with that. I'm going back in time. I'm admitting to you that I was very critical, not to mention since 1993, we established what happens when a kickboxer takes on a grappler, right? You got this kickboxer versus two-time Olympian, a medalist, bronze. So I said my piece. Somebody asked Holly Holm about it. Holly Holm's sitting up there. She's looking great. She's doing her little press conference. She says, Chael Sonnen says, your 17 world kickboxing and boxing championships aren't real. And Holly cuts him off. She grabs the mic. She cuts him off. She goes, I agree with him. He's right. He's right. And then they were trying to come in over the top and go, well, he said it. She goes, he's right. I agree with him. They're not real. This is for the world championship. This one does count. Keep those other 17. I was really impressed with that answer. I thought, wow, that was interesting. I mean, she burnt her ships in that moment. In that moment, she said, this one, the one we're fighting, this is the one that counts, which means if she doesn't win, the other 17 are gone. She's taking them off the resume. It's a wildly powerful position that she put herself in. And then she goes out and she produces the biggest upset in title fight history. And she does it by stoppage. And Renan Barão and TJ Dillashaw also went off at 7-1. I'm saying that before anybody leaves me a comment, right? In the comment section. How's that for the top of my head? Admit you're impressed with that. Right off the top of my head, I pulled Barão and Dillashaw. But this was a stoppage. This was a little bit different. And Holly's reign began. And we talked over here about what brought Ronda down. And it wasn't just a change in the competition. It was the beautiful contract. With the contract, with the money, with the media and the marketing that she's going to do, she must be your main event. There's no other reasonable or responsible place as a promoter you could put her except for in the main event. And I think that that's where Holly's finding herself. And I don't like the article that said that Holly was done. I didn't see a declined Holly at all. That is the nastiest choke in this sport. I have a black belt under Fabiana Scherner. That is the nastiest choke in the sport. It's a rear naked choke grip, essentially, from a guillotine position. Oh, my goodness. Oh, forget it. I'm just sharing with you. If the person gets that lock, anybody's going to tap out. And I just can't hold it against Holly. I hope she does come back. If they put her in a main event, that's great with me. I'm not holding this one against her. I'm giving Silva her credit. But I do want you to know that what you're seeing is a little bit of a tired Holly that is preparing for 70% more. Her training is 70% more. The wear on her body is 70% more. The running that she's got to do, the rounds that she's got to put in, the jump rope she's got to do, the speed bag that she's got to do, it's 70% more to be ready for these 5-round contests. And that's not how the majority of the roster has to prepare.